Hi guys, Jeff Miller here again from SpeedBinder. Today we are going to talk about creating 3D effects in text to get effects like the one you're seeing here on your screen right now. The idea for this video started, we did a job for a client this week where they wanted sort of this frivolous, happy, fun kind of look on their their newsletter for July, and so we thought, why not, let's do this text effects. I thought, okay, let's put a video together and show how we do that, because it's really very simple once you know the steps. All right, so this is kind of what we're going to end up with. So to kind of step you through how we do that, I'm going to create a new file, and let me just shrink this down a little bit because it comes in kind of big. Next, first step, we need some text, and since we're SpeedBinder, we're going to use our website. SpeedBinder.com. Here we go. Now, you're going to want to give this, whatever font you want, obviously. The other thing to keep in mind is don't overdo it with a really busy or fancy font, because you're going to have a lot of effects going on. So you don't need a lot of font to make this interesting. The effects themselves will make it interesting. So there are definitely fonts that are too busy that will kind of make this look a little crazy. So I don't know, just pick something that you think you'll like. Play around with it, have some fun. This is a good font, this Hobo. This will work pretty well for it. It's pretty simple, still looks kind of clever. Now, next step is we want to kind of stretch this vertically and exaggerate it a little bit vertically. That's going to be important because, as you'll see in the next step, we're going to pinch it down on the right-hand side, and we don't want it to just totally disappear. So, next step. We're going to go to the Object, Envelope Distort, Make with Warp. All right. Now, when you first come in, I think the default Illustrator settings are going to bring it something like that. They're going to give you this big arc effect. That's obviously not what we want. So the way to get what we do want is we want the blend. We're going to set that to 0. And then the horizontal distortion, we want to go into the negative so that we're full size on the left. We kind of go down to a vanishing point on the right. And just play around with however much of the effect you want. I'm going to go with -80, and then our vertical distortion I'm going to leave at 0. If you want, you can see what that's going to. You can do goofy stuff. The vertical distortion is how you get that Star Wars effect if you ever wanted to do that. Anyway, I'm going to leave that at 0 for what we're doing here. Okay, boom. Step 1 done. Okay, the next step is we're going to do the 3D look. And the way we're going to do that is go into our Effect menu, 3D, Extrude and Bevel. This is just the coolest thing. You can do all kinds of stuff in here. Spend hours playing around with the options on this. There's just almost no limit to what it can do. When you first bring it up, it might look like this. You might need to click more options to get down to the good stuff down here. If so, go for it. I'm going to hit preview so we can see what's happening here. First thing I'm going to do is, there's these 3 angles that kind of control the perspective of this thing. The easiest way to do this, I like using isometric right for this particular effect. I'm just going to select that, isometric right, and that sort of brings in a preloaded set of angles. And if you want, you can still kind of play with that a little bit and adjust the angle. Do whatever you want. There's no right or wrong. Now it all kind of disappeared, and that's because of the shading color. It's currently set at black, so I'm going to set this to a custom color, and I'm going to go with kind of a light tealy kind of color. I'm just grabbing one. It's not important what the color is, but that gives us that kind of look. Now a couple of other things to play around with here. For what we're doing here, the extrude depth is currently set at 50 points. That's obviously going to control how deep the 3D extrusion goes. There's really super crazy deep, and then we set it to a really small number, like 5. We're getting very little effect. I want to have a fair amount, so I like 50 for this. That'll give us some some effect. Bevel, it's you can play with this. We don't actually use a bevel when we're doing this, but it kind of creates this look, on the front, on the face of the object. And honestly, boy, Photoshop does this stuff better if you want to create that beveled look on text. Maybe someday we'll put a video together on how to do that in Photoshop. I don't like the way Illustrator does that nearly as cleanly as what you get out of Photoshop. So we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, as I always said, bevel to none when we're doing this. Next thing is going down through these options on. You notice how my teal is kind of nice, a nice bright teal here, but it kind of gets dingy on the effect, and that's based on this ambient light. If I set ambient light to 0, bang, I get a, my teal comes out at sort of full intensity. If I set ambient light to 100, poof, it all goes black. So play around with that, set that to where you want it to look. The other thing to look at is this blend steps option, and the best way to explain that is, and I don't know if you can see it on the video or not, but if you look real tight on the side of this S, there's actually, you can sort of see some stair stepping. And it comes down to what your output intentions are for this effect. If it's going to be web, then it's one thing. If it's going to be print, it's going to be something else. But the higher the number for this option, the smoother that gradient's going to be. And so you don't want it to be higher than you need because it's just going to slow things down. But on the other hand, if you do make it higher, you'll get a nice smoother gradient, and that might be something that you want. So something to look at there. Okay, now if you look at our remember on our initial the mock-up, we've got kind of a photograph that we're going to mask on this thing. Now there's a way of doing that that's built into the 3D extrude and bevel that we're not going to use, but I want to show it to you real quick. If you go into Map Art, this is kind of cool, but it's also pretty tough to work with. Every single face in this 3D thing you can access, and you see as I'm clicking through, I'm going to click through until I get one of the letters in the front selected. Okay, there we go. The second W is now selected. And now what I can do is I can map a symbol from my symbols palette and actually put it on the front of that. So I'm going to stretch this thing out. So there you go. And you can actually map artwork right onto any face in the 3D extrusion, which is pretty cool. But that's not what we're going to do, and I'll show you why in a little while, because for what we're doing here, we would have to load up a whole bunch of symbols, and we would lose a little bit of control, and so we're not gonna do that in this example. So I'm going to clear that off, and there we go. So here we are. This is our extrusion. Good enough. Let's just leave this the way it is. Okay. All right. So here we go. Next step is, and this is destructive. So if you're working on this and you want to play around with it, save it here, and then you can go back and reload it, or else just copy this and paste it. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to blow out the effects right now. So I'm going to go into Object, Expand Appearance. So that takes all of that stuff we did and it just blows it out into the fills and strokes, and so now it's a little easier to manage. So there it is, looking cool. Okay, so what's left to do? Well, what we want to do is we want to take this the face of all of this text, and use that to clipping mask an image like we got here. We have this nice little background sunset kind of thing. We want a clipping mask on that. So here we go. The way to do that is with our thing visible, I'm going to select just one of these faces, because the nice thing is, how do you pull this apart? Well, if you look at it this way with just the regular selection tool, this thing's all one big group. It's actually billions of objects all grouped together, and pulling them apart manually would be a chore. So what we can do is we can just do the direct select tool and select one of these letters in the front. Now we do a select, same, fill color, boom, we get them all. So now I can just copy that, and I'm going to create a new layer, make sure the new layer is selected, and I'm going to do a paste in place. So that it takes that and drops it right on top. And now, you'll see why we do this in a moment, I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to create another new layer, make sure it's selected, and then paste it in place again. So now what I have are, I've got one layer that's got our original bevel extrusion stuff in it, and then I've got two layers that are just the text. like so. Okay, so I'm going to go to the first layer that we created that's just the text, and I'm going to select this stuff, and what I want to do is I want to turn this into a compound path. So I just select everything, compound path, make. Boom, I've got my compound path, and I'm going to use that to make a clipping mask. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to place my photo that I want to do, which let me go find that in my directory structure here. Scene, here we go. This is way too big, so let's scale it down. Here we go. Now, I'll send it to the background so you can kind of see where it's going to fall a little easier. Since this is just a landscape scene, I can sort of warp it without worrying about making it look too silly. Now, one of the things I found when you do this is when you're mapping this artwork, you see we kind of have a horizon line in this photo. So let's rotate that so that it roughly follows the flow here. That'll make it look a little more natural and just look better. Okay, something like that, and I'm just gonna do a little stretch, make sure I get it. Just going to play around here. I think I want to unrotate just a little bit here. Okay, something like that. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, so I've got the photo placed where I want it. I've got my text, obviously. And what I want to do is just select everything, right-click, make clipping mask. Bang, there we go. So there I've got my photo, and it's masked out along my text. Kind of cool. So if we leave that layer visible and I make the background layer visible, you can see we have, like so, you can see our text laying in front of the extrusion. But we've kind of lost, because there's not a lot of contrast between some of this color in the front and the shading in the back. That's what this last layer is for. Let me lock the other two layers so I can just select everything just in that layer 3. And what I want to do is I just want to use this. I'm gonna give it no fill, so they're open on the fill, but I want to give it a little stroke color, and that'll give us a little contrast to make the letters pop a little bit. And you'll see if I set them to black, you get that. I could maybe a darker bluish kind of color. Something like that. There we go. However you want to do it. Last thing I do, just to make it pop a little bit more for the benefit of the web video, is I just create a new layer on the very bottom, set it to black. Here we go. Make the whole thing pop up a little bit. So there you have it. Something like that. Play around with it. You can do lots of different things, lots of different options. Have some fun. Easy to do. It takes a couple of minutes once you get the hang of it. If you're not trying to talk your way through it, you can probably do this in 30 seconds. So anyway, hope you're having a great day. Hope you're having a great Friday like we are here. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks a bunch. Bye.